Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, I am super excited because today's guest is somebody who I worked with in my business. Oh gosh, Natalie, how long ago has it been now? Like 15 years, maybe longer?
A long time.
A long time ago. And I have been following her journey ever since. I absolutely loved the work that we did together, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. But she's made a couple pivots over the years, or decade and a half as it may be. And so I wanted to have her on the podcast for a couple reasons. A, we're going to be talking about leveraging a book to help grow your business in a really smart, strategic way, and especially exploring some self-publishing options for those who that might be a better fit for. But I also really wanted to have her on the show right now because I know so many people are in that inflection point where they're looking in their business at, should I pivot? I feel like I'm being called to something else. I'm a little scared to do something new at a point in time when it feels like nothing's working and I'm not sure what's going to gain traction. And so I thought, what a great conversation to bring Natalie on, who we've known each other forever. I've watched her business evolve so much over the years, and I love what she's doing today. So I know you'll get a ton of value out of the conversation, but we'll also talk a little bit about the pivot points, just in case you happen to be in one, which so many of the people that I am talking to are. So Natalie, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course, let me tell you all a little bit about Miss Natalie, and then we'll dive into the good stuff. So Natalie Walstein is the founder of Divine Flow Publishing Company, where she, along with her team, helps spiritual entrepreneurs publish beautiful books that are raising the vibration of the planet. She is also a published author of 3 books and counting, and she's the host of the Divine Flow podcast. So as I shared, today we're going to be talking about leveraging a book to grow your business. But first, I want to dive into a little bit of our history because it's kind of fun. So here's a fun fact that many of you probably don't know about me. And if you do know this about me, you need to email me and tell me because that means you've been in my world a really long time. But back before it was cool and back before it was a thing, I had a magazine that I published that was a body positivity magazine. And Natalie was my designer. And she did the most gorgeous job. I wanted to keep that magazine purely because of how beautifully it was designed. And Natalie, I don't even remember how we met. Do you remember how we even got connected?
I'm assuming it's because I designed other magazines at the time, and you probably saw one of them.
I think I did, and I reached out to you because I loved your designs and said she must do my magazine. And so we worked together for quite a while, and that magazine was a beast. That thing was like 130 to 150 pages an episode. So you had no short task at hand every time I would send you a new one.
Yeah, but they were really fun to design. So beautiful.
Oh, they were great. So this was when I launched my jewelry brand and I did the magazine to accompany it. So we would do these fabulous photo shoots with my jewelry and all of these amazing exotic locations. I had people who wrote all of these different articles, although I will say I probably wrote about 80% of that magazine myself. And then Natalie did all of the design and it was just absolutely gorgeous. Maybe we'll find some old copies and stick them in the show notes for you. But with that being said, so graphic design, it was something that you did for a long time. And then you pivoted. So walk us through a little bit of how did you know it was time to make a shift? And then how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was designing magazines and now I work on books. So it's really not that different. But in between, I did a lot of other things that weren't that obvious that somehow brought me back to this. Because after I did design, actually, when I was still a designer, I had 3 clients come to me in the same month and ask me to design a moon tracker. And I had never worked with astrology before. I read my horoscope and stuff like that, and I thought it was interesting. But it was through working with my clients that I learned about the moon. And at the time, I was living on the big island of Hawaii, and that's where NASA takes pictures of space. So the sky was incredible, and I wanted to understand it better. So I became an astrologer. And I was an astrologer for 8 years in between being a graphic designer and working on books now. So I was helping people find their ideal career with astrology because that's what it was helping me do. As much as I really loved working as a designer, I love beautiful things. I love making things look beautiful. I love working with female entrepreneurs, which was my audience. I wanted something that was deeper, less surface level. And my astrology chart was showing me that I was meant to help people on a deeper spiritual level. And I thought, oh, I'll use astrology. So I did that for 8 years, and I worked with so many amazing people to help them find their calling. And then I found that I was growing beyond that. And I was craving more depth and meaning again. And it was through reading books that I was finding that I was growing the most. All different kinds of books, business books, spiritual books. And I wrote a book for astrology too. And we could talk more about that at some point. And during that process of getting published by a traditional publisher, I thought it was going to be my dream come true in life. And I didn't have the most dreamy experience. And so through publishing that book and realizing I wanted to publish many more books, I wanted to write so many more books, but I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted creative control over the process, and I wanted to feel honored as an author. And I didn't want to feel like I'm signing away my life's work to a greedy company and all these different things. So that's kind of, I didn't even think in my head, oh, I'll start a publishing company. But when I was working on my second book, Messages from the Higher Self, I knew I needed to find a better way to publish it. And so I decided to self-publish. And then the publishing company kind of found me. And I'm like, that seems kind of daunting to start a publishing company. But luckily I have a beautiful team that I already knew. They were already in my world because I was already working with so many people all the time as an astrologer. And I kind of could handpick the best talent to work with me. So it's been amazing.
I love that journey so much. And just the one thing that I want to really highlight in your story, which I think is great, is it seemed like you were always doing something you loved, but you just kept feeling called to deeper levels of work. And yet the work kind of came to you in a way. You had people asking you for something that made you realize you wanted to do work in astrology. And then you had a need based on your first publishing experience to pivot. And so sometimes I think we bust out the whiteboard and we spend so much time in our head strategizing what to do next, when I bet all the clues are really right there if you're paying attention to them.
Yeah, we have to learn what we love through experience. And that's something I was telling people all the time as an astrologer. Your astrology chart is your potential, but you might not be ready for it if you're not out there doing the things that you love enough to realize that that's your path. So that's what I had to do too, is live the journey.
My gosh, I love this. And I feel like we could talk about this forever, but let's talk about actual publishing now a little bit. And then we'll circle back here because you're even now doing some really beautiful and incredible pivots, micro pivots in the business where the business is the same. But again, you're listening and you're doing interesting things with your offer. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But talk to us about self-publishing. So when would, as an author, as someone who's feeling either called to write a book, is in the middle of writing a book, or has already written a book and maybe had a terrible prior experience like you, what is the reason why somebody would choose to self-publish, and why would somebody instead maybe choose to go with a traditional publisher?
I think we're kind of taught that that's what you do, is go with a traditional publisher, and you have to wait to be chosen, and you have to impress the right people and please the right gatekeepers. And that just right there, doesn't align with me at all anymore. But that's what we thought we had to do back in the day. And a lot of people still believe that, but there are so many resources available now to publish your own books, to choose yourself, to keep creative control over the entire process. Because when I was getting published through the traditional route, they edited my book and they edited my voice out. And I had to go back through and put it back in to have my personality in there. And of course they're well-meaning, but they don't know my why and my mission and my vision as well as I do. So that's part of it. And then also, when you self-publish, you get to keep 100% of the profit, and you are well aware of how many books you're selling on any given day, which makes it a lot easier to know how well your marketing efforts are actually working. With traditional publishing, I get a sales statement every 6 months, but it's not for the previous 6 months. It's for the period before that. And so there's no way to really know, like, what did I do a year ago to promote my book that might be working or not working? So you have a lot more control over selling and sales and marketing and seeing what actually works for you, which is really helpful when you want to get your book out to as many people as possible and you want to do it in a way that actually works.
Fantastic. And now, how about for those listening who are saying, that sounds really good, and I've wanted to write a book forever, or I've been trying to get this book finished forever, and maybe I should start thinking about it. What are some of the reasons that you see books being so powerful, especially for business owners?
I think whenever you can bring someone into your world and help them understand your beliefs and how you got to where you are today and why your mission is so powerful to you, it's contagious for other people, and they want to get on board with that as well. So it's a really good way to kind of like implant your brain into other people's brains so they can join your movement and understand it deeply.
I love that so much. I know I have been working on, do other people do this? I literally have so much that I want to say, which those of you who listen to this podcast, probably no surprise that I am like a prolific content creator, but I have probably about 3 different books that I'm working across, because I'll be down one path and then like I have ideas and I'm down another path and I'm like, no, wait, that has to be 2 different things. No, wait, that has to be something else. And so I've been making such great progress, and I feel like I'm going to be that weird person that goes from 0 to 3 instead of from 0 to 1. Do other people do this where they simultaneously work on multiple things?
Yes, definitely. That does happen. I think for some people, we actually are more productive that way from like an astrology perspective. It like helps you not get burnt out on that one subject. Because even like for us to read a book, it takes a long time, but imagine sitting down to write it, it takes like 10 times longer.
I feel like when the floodgates are open for me and I am full of ideas, I can't get them out of my head fast enough because they just come flooding in. But if I sit down and I'm very intentional and I'm like, okay, in this hour I am writing, I'm just like, Yes. Never seems to come through exactly the way I want it to. So let's dive into a little bit of some of the decisions that you make around publishing. So if you are looking for a publisher, whether it's doing self-publishing or working with a more traditional publisher, what are some of the questions you should be asking and some of the things you should be looking for to find the right fit?
I think it's really good. Like, I'm always going to come from the energetic perspective, but just like feeling out someone's energy, if they seem like a good company to pair up with, and like what other books have they published? Do you align with those books? Do you like how those books turned out? There's a lot you can figure out without even talking to a person, just by observing their website and how they come across and how they write even. So that's a good place to start, but also looking at what's included. So when you think about writing a book, I'm sure you have a vision for your book. Maybe when you thought someday I'm going to write a book, you pictured it looking at or feeling a certain way, like, oh, I'm going to have a book launch party and I'm going to wear hot pink pants when I go to it, or my book's going to be full color, or my book's not going to be full color, or whatever the situation might be. So it's always good to kind of look into if what they provide is part of your vision. Like if you imagine yourself having an audiobook, do they provide audiobooks? So that's a good thing to look for to start with.
Fantastic. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then what about when it comes to actually marketing your book? So if you've chosen your publisher, you're pretty close to done with the book. Like, when do you start marketing it? And what are some of the most effective ways that you've seen that people get good traction?
It's a really good idea to start marketing it right when you have committed to the book and you've decided you're for sure going to write the book, because you can talk about your idea without saying, oh, it's going to be in a book. and start to draw people towards you who are going to eventually want to read that book. So talking about the subject or the topic and like why that's so important to you and what inspired you to be so interested in that is kind of a way to start talking about your book before you mention you have a book. And then you can take people along with you through the whole process. That's really the best thing you can do, is start building your author platform right away as soon as you can. That's something we help people with. And then as far as marketing, when I worked with a traditional publisher, I thought, oh, they're going to do everything for me. They're going to make me look good. They're going to take care of me. That is not the case. You are responsible for marketing your own book. And for, at least with who I worked with, they didn't really help with that. They would send me opportunities that did not align with my brand whatsoever and like act like, oh, we're helping you. So that's something that was really important to me when I started a publishing company, is making sure we help you through the whole process, because writing the book is one thing, but once it comes out, that's really the beginning. We want to get it into the right hands of the people who really need it. So there's a whole process involved in that, including like a pre-order launch where you can give away bonuses for people who buy your book early. There's like when the book comes out, how do you make it like a party? How do you really celebrate it? And then how do you keep marketing it after it comes out? And people kind of get bored of hearing about it. How do you keep like fitting it in and making it feel exciting? So this is something that we focus on with our authors quite a bit, to like keep that momentum going for a long time to come.
All right. So what's one of the most fun things that somebody did for a book launch? I'm so curious.
Yeah. One of our authors just had a book launch last weekend, and they had kind of took over a store that's going to stock their book. And they put together these cute little like charcuterie cups with like pretzels and like cheese and salami and stuff like on little skewers. And then in each one, they had like a message, like a question for someone to answer in the audience that was related to the topic, so that their book wasn't just about them and how like smart they are, but it allowed people to kind of like engage in the subject and like relate it back to themselves. So I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah, I love that. That's very clever and a little bit different. So super fun. So tell us a little bit more about your journey throughout launching this company, right? Obviously, when you went into it, you had a vision of what it was going to be, and it sounded like you were really solving your own problem, and then it grew from there. So what has it been? And is there anything that you've learned that you found to be a little surprising or different than you expected in a good way?
Yeah. So it was like January 2024 that I started realizing, oh my goodness, I think I'm starting a publishing company. Am I crazy? Because it seems like a lot of work, and I'm kind of trying to like always go with the flow and not work too hard. So the first thing was to get together a team that could help take over all the areas that I didn't want to have to be fully immersed in every day, or who they were like experts, so I didn't have to learn how to do it. So that was definitely the first thing. But as I got further into it, I very quickly realized like why people don't start publishing companies, because they are really complicated, figuring out like royalties and how to make it fair to the author, and also like a fair price for the reader too. So I had to do a lot of work around changing people's beliefs around publishing too, because people are still stuck in thinking I have to be the number one expert of the universe on this subject before I can write a book about it. So we've kind of shifted it into more like writing for healing, for your own healing, and then healing others through your book, and not needing to be an expert. Like you can literally be going through something and writing about it at the same time. And I think people really appreciate that raw, real perspective. It's why we like to read books from top professionals too, because we like to hear all the crap they had to go through to get where they are. And I think that's kind of the most powerful part of most people's stories anyway. So we're trying to like level the playing field. And that's something I had to learn through the process of putting this out into the world.
So it's really interesting. You shared that as one of the examples of where you're helping people shift their perceptions a little bit. Are there any others that you see really commonly with people who are either writing a book or wishing, but feeling like they're not ready yet?
People tend to think they need to have it all planned out before they work with us, or before they like, declare to everyone they're going to write the book. So we like to say that when you open the tap, the book comes through for you. It finds you. It like the creative inspiration guides itself towards you. Once you've kind of made that decision and declared that, yes, you're going to write the book, it's going to wake you up in the middle of the night. Every conversation you have, every TV show you watch, everything, you're going to start seeing it through the lens of your book. And it's going to kind of write itself the more you hold space for it to write itself.
Yeah, I will say that that is true from what I'm doing, which is why I have literally 3 files that I just open at any given time on my computer, because I never know when I have something that I'm sticking on those pages.
Yeah, and it's okay if your book takes a long time too. I was just going to an author talk a couple weeks ago, and she had the #1 book in 2024, and she told us it took her 7 years to write. So it's okay if it takes a long time, but you still have to start somewhere.
For sure. And you just said, #1 book. So let's talk about rankings and ratings and being rated the top this or the top, number whatever this. So how does that work from a self-publishing perspective? Are you still eligible for some of those things? And what's the value of doing that, do you see, for someone?
Of course, everybody wants their book to be really successful and sell a lot of copies. That would be a really big bonus. But I think it's important to go into writing a book wanting to help people and change their lives and kind of measuring it against that more than anything else. It's not that it can't be super successful. There are so many self-published authors who are like knocking it out of the park above traditional authors. So that's definitely still a thing. And you can still get your book in bookstores and libraries and like get the staff pick at the bookstore and stuff like that. But I think like that sort of thing, it's like you can't always control that. You can do your best with marketing and setting up interviews and your media campaign ahead of time as best as you possibly can. But the most important thing is to help people and change their lives. So that's like, if you're going to go into it, let that be your why more than like becoming famous, because I don't think that's going to feel as fulfilling to you as you might hope it would.
Yeah, I agree. And I just recently released an interview with Kim Woods, and we were talking about it, and she's just publishing her book. It should have just published by the time this episode airs. And this is her 8th book. So she's written multiple books, and she did all of that before. And this time she had a very different goal. And I loved her goal so much because she was saying, I want 1 million people to read this book. She said, but unlike before where, I may have been going for the top this, and she did get a lot of that with her prior books. She was like, I want people to read it. I don't want people to just buy it so I can rank on a chart. I want people to read it because I want to transform 1 million lives. And I just loved that perspective and that drive behind it.
I think having a good intention like that makes your book take off more, because people can feel your desperation when you're like, I just want to sell a bunch of copies. But when you're like really heart-centered about it, that's kind of way more contagious.
Agreed. Yeah, that just so drew me in when she was talking about that. I was like, wait a minute. You're the first person I've say, not like that I want to sell this many copies, but that you want that many people to read it because you want to actually transform that many people's lives. But let's talk a little bit about your publishing house and what you do and how you work. So tell us a little bit about your kind of special sauce and how you like to work with authors.
Yeah, so we're more of a spiritual publishing company, but we work with entrepreneurs a lot as well to publish their life's work, which sounds kind of daunting, but it's like all the research you've done, all the personal experiences you've had on a subject that you feel like if people knew about it, it would change the world. So it's kind of going back to that phrase, be the change you want to see in the world, but it's like write the book that you want people to believe in the world. So yeah, we work with people who like their why is to make a difference, to raise the vibration of the planet, to make the world a better place. I think most books are probably written for that purpose, but we really make that front and center in terms of like what your reader can get out of your book. We don't write books that are like fluff-filled marketing ploys, but we do want your book to still be a powerful tool for your business to grow and expand and touch the right people. So in that way, you can also kind of look at your book as a business card, but people don't usually throw away books. Like I'm sure you guys listening, you've thrown away a few business cards in your day, but usually a book we we look at as being sacred. We look at it with a little bit more reverence, and it allows people to really understand the full depth of who we are. So we like to publish books that are more personal too. Like it's really about your story, almost like people watching, where people get to experience your life journey as they learn from you at the same time. And we have a few different publishing pathways to help you do that. You want me to go into that now?
Yeah, share a little bit about it. And as you do that, also share a little bit of some of the changes that you've been making, because I think it'll be so helpful for people to hear, even as you've been established and you know that this is what you want to be doing, you're still making those micro adjustments so that everything continuously feels aligned and successful. So yeah, take us through.
Yeah. So of course I didn't grow up on publishing. I came into it later in life. So every day, every month, every week, I'm learning new things from people who want to write books about what's going to work best for them. We started with a VIP publishing model, trying to make it as close to traditional publishing as possible so that people still felt like their book is going to be trustworthy. But they get that high touch, service where we do everything for you. And I found for a lot of people that felt out of reach for them. And they were able to be tech savvy and figure out how to do some things on their own. If I can do it, I can teach people how to do it. So then self-publishing was born with our program Book Magic, where we show you how to publish your book and how to do everything that we do for our authors, which is kind of fun because it helps me fine-tune our process for our VIP authors at the same time. So we kind of go back and forth with our focus, let's work on the self-publishing program, and then let's switch over to making our publishing VIP option a little bit better. Kind of working on them in tandem, because they're kind of for two different people. If you're really busy and you're successful in your business, you probably don't want to be sitting around toiling with registering your ISBN, your International Standard Book Number, and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of depends on where you're at in your journey, in your career, what calls to you more. But again, I'm kind of trying to equal the playing field, so that everybody has an option to get into publishing, and it doesn't have to be only for the elite to share their voice and their message.
I love that. And it's making me chuckle as you say this, because I published my Lean Out Planner back in 2019. And it was basically like writing a book, because I had to learn how to register ISBNs. And I literally wrote a 160-page book, basically, that turned into a planner. And I did what all entrepreneurs, I feel do is, okay, I figured this out. So now let me teach other people how to do it. And I turned it into a program where I taught people how to publish planners.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Go figure. Yep. I had another company called Profitable Planner Co. for a while, but then I realized great business, wonderful. And right now my focus needs to be elsewhere. So pivots, as we're talking about in this episode. So Natalie, tell us where people can find you, where if they're interested in learning more about how you work with people and exploring if it's a good fit for them, they can get in touch.
You can find out more at divineflow.co. If you click on Write a Book at the top, you can read more about our different publishing pathways and what's included, what's involved. And I'm always happy to chat if you have questions and want to feel out if it's the right fit for you.
All right. So this question, I feel like you kind of answered this already earlier, so I'm super curious what you're going to say. But in your business, how do you scale smarter, not harder, and keep things lean?
Definitely the team. I'm sure pretty much everybody has said that, but it's really important. And also to stick with your team. I think something I learned very quickly is that people need time to learn what you want and need. And at first, when they weren't getting it right away, I'm everyone says to hire a team, but it's making my life harder. It's an investment. So sticking with it. And then also, I know for me, I don't like to have a lot of calls in my life. So, cause I feel I'm a creative, right? I want to flow and be an artist and travel and things like that. So I try to plan things where I'm not going to have to be on a lot of calls all the time. And if I am, it's condensed, a lot of people at once, or only the VIP client once a week or something like that. So keeping my client base smaller so that I can do better work and also be more creatively inspired when I'm not working.
I so resonate with that. that mirrors how I like to work as well. All right. So give us your kind of final tips and takeaways for how to best leverage a book to grow our business and really get our beautiful, incredible message or mission out into the world.
Yeah, I did want to add, if you are writing your book to grow your business and you really want to use it as a tool to promote your business, it's important not to give everything away in your book. I always want you to be as generous as you possibly can be and like truly help people. If all they did was read the book, they get a lot out of it. But kind of like focus more on the why behind why you do what you do, why it helps, why they need it. And you can give the what to do, but maybe not always like how to do that process so that eventually they can come to you to get that from you. And they'll probably have a better experience because how many of us like read a book and follow every tip that we get in the book? Usually we don't. We're kind of scanning. So it's in their best interest as well for you to not give away the entire kit and caboodle so that they can come to you for the rest.
Good to keep in mind as I am writing down all of my formulas in my book as we speak. So no, this is fantastic. Natalie, thank you so much for being here. And I'm just so excited that we were able to connect after all of these years. I love seeing the constant evolution and just the absolutely beautiful and very needed work that you're up to. So thank you for being such an important part of my journey way back when. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And if you know anyone who is in the process of or thinking of publishing a book, be sure to share this episode with them so they can hear all of the wisdom that Natalie had to share today. We'll see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Simplify to Scale. If you'd like to take things further, I invite you to join me for my Scale Smarter, Not Harder interactive workshop. Head to strategicopsinstitute.com/scale smarter to get registered. Not only will we dive into what might be keeping you trapped in the day-to-day, but you'll have the opportunity to ask me your questions live. If you got value out of today's episode, I'd love if you'd take a moment and rate and review the show so more businesses can learn to scale more simply and sustainably. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll see you again next week.